in the morning, sometime with one moon.
Now,
Do you recall seeing Lyle,
got
your
to
brother, on that day?
go back.
I don't specifically recall.
Hi, everyone. I hope you're having a wonderful week. So before I get into what I wanted to discuss today, I want to first begin by again thanking all of you for the most touching and encouraging letters, not only from around the United States, but
Menendez,
from many other countries. It's really
I
amazing
can't believe
and
this guy's
impactful. So
fucking
many of you write
his own. That's hard to believe. How in the hell
sort of
can they have that
words, stories of your
in
lives. So it's very touching, and I want to thank you again for that. Now, some of the questions that I'm asked a lot about is
But I
about my
subscribe
current
to
life
him
in
anyway.
prison.
Huh?
Essentially, I think
That's cool.
what you're asking is, who am I today? If you've seen a bunch of videos or stories or documentaries of my past, but what interests me today? What am I like today? What do I do with my day? Is what I'm getting a sense from a lot of you guys that write. And obviously there's a lot that people don't know about what I do in my life today. What I do.
Frankly, I don't give a fuck what you do in your life today.
One of the examples is that there are a few major activities that I'm passionate about, and I really enjoy pouring my energy into most days of the week and every week. So I was going to talk to you about that, and in no particular order, mention three. So
This call and your telephone number will be monitored and recorded.
one is my meditation class. It's called Homicide meditation. Now, when you hear the word meditation, people have different opinions and think different things. And some of you may not even be sure what meditation really is. But I began meditating many years ago to help with the stress inside prison. Because prison can be a stressful, traumatic place. And
Lyle
cope with that, and for me to
might
deal
have.
with
I just don't.
really the struggles that I go through in prison. It used to a lot more when I was younger. I got into the practice of meditation, and it really helped. It made a huge impact on my life. So I'm a big proponent of meditation. I believe that it's an important part of our spiritual and emotional growth. Certainly, it has been for me. And so, if any of you meditate, I'd love to hear about that. Two, I've become fully involved with an organization called AVP, Alternatives to Violence Project. The AVP was started, it's a project that was started by the Quakers in New York in the 1970s, and it's really sort of exploded into this larger movement, this international organization. Basically what the program is participants in this program essentially explore ways to channel emotions in peaceful and nonviolent means, which in a prison setting, when you have people that have been incarcerated for committing wrongdoing, it's a big deal for guys to learn how to channel these the emotions they have, frustration and anger, resentment, and jealousy, the return and any others. It's not just a program that occurs inside a prison. It's also in school.
Oh. Oh, okay. Too late for that, isn't it? Check this out.
As for the specifics of this ABC show, there was a lot of the show that was just false, or so many facts that were so distorted that they were essentially made false. And so, I mean, I could spend a lot of time countering all of that, but to what end? I don't really see a point. I can give an example. One of the things that one of the reporters mentioned was that my mom would do our homework, and that I would go into school, or Lyle would go into school, and we'd fail the tests. And I think that that was said to make it seem like we were just evil kids that had everything done for us, or whatnot. And, that's simply not true. My mom would help with homework sometimes. I don't know whether or not that's normal in households.
That's what that is. Okay, I'm gonna check this out.
You don't drive like other people, so why should you pay what they pay for car insurance? With Karma Drive, your good driving could get you a big discount from a trusted insurance provider. Credit Karma. Download the app today.
A double murder that riveted the country. The Menendez brothers, who killed their parents in Beverly Hills, have been reunited in a San Diego prison.
Our attendance reporter Travis Weiss is live outside of Donovan State Prison. And Travis, you talked with the former DA who says the brothers' reunion is highly unusual.
Yeah, this case already has a San Diego connection. The brothers bought the shotguns they killed their parents with here. Now, after 20 years apart, they're together at last in a correctional facility. It's one of the most notorious crimes in American history, but it's a reunion the cameras didn't catch. Lyle and Eric Menendez are back together at San Diego's Donovan Correctional Facility after they were convicted of killing their mother and father in their Beverly Hills home almost 30 years ago. 50-year-old Lyle transferred to Donovan last month, but the California Department of Corrections says now 47-year-old Eric moved into the same housing facility as Lyle, where inmates regularly see each other.
They are now able to interact probably pretty regularly. They probably have chow at the same time. They probably spend all their yard time together, or at least they can.
Forensic psychologist Dr. Eric Fox says there is an advantage to having the brothers in the same place.
I think there's some benefit maybe to the prison to be able to keep them in the same housing unit in terms of their ability to get along and less likely to be involved in rules violations and things like that.
I'm not sure why they're doing this, because generally we tell people you won't be with your relatives.
Former San Diego DA Paul Fink says there are plenty of relatives who go away, but the correction system keeps them separate.
To stop people from forming sort of a clique inside a particular module and having some advanced power.
An unverified Facebook account claiming to be operated by the Menendez brothers through their relatives posted about the reunion Wednesday. Miracles do happen. There are no words to describe what happened today. Quite the contrast to when they were about to be incarcerated.
We will spend the rest of our life in prison. But if we're not put in the same prison, there's a good probability I will never see him again.
It bears repeating that the brothers are serving life sentences. Also, that Lyle had been the one lobbying to be moved closer to his brother in later inmate hearings. Live at the Donovan
do Charlie Manson.
Are you so afraid of that's got your mind locked up?
No, I don't understand.
Go over to the morgue and look at all the dead people.
Just explain to me, though, I'm not done. Explain to me simply why that house that night. Why they
Which
were
house?
there.
Which night?
The house on Shallow Drive, the Tate house. Why did they go there that night?
Because Tex had been there before. And he went to a familiar place.
And why did they kill people that night? What did they think they
Because
were doing for you?
they freaked out, man. Tex was stoned. You got, everybody was loaded,
He
man.
said he wasn't. He said he was coming off an LSD trip. He had a little speed.
No speed. Well, not around me, he didn't have no speed, because I wasn't around no speed on that ranch. I kick ass over there.
He
A
said he
lot of that
had,
stuff around me. I take a little grass and a little LSD, but none of that was destructive. You can ask any of them other girls, that'll tell you that. On the other side of this game, I don't play drugs. I play light, like dibby dabby chipping, but I don't really get down heavy.
what did they think they
Are
were
we ready here, man?
Yeah, we're ready.
Yeah, we ready here? Okay, ready. War.
What did they
War.
think they
We
were
are at war now.
What did they think they were doing for you?
They was doing anything for me.
What
sir.
did they think they were doing for you?
Okay. If you are me and I am you, everything you do is for me too.
So what did they think?
If you're in
they
one
were
mind,
achieving
if I am
for
you and you are me and we are all together, and then who's responsible for come together over me right now? Da, 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 da. It's all his fault. Oh, no, it's his fault. No, we put another false face on it. It's Halloween. It's your fault. So now, wait a minute. Criminal behavior is the same. It's mundane in most minds. Criminal always go to a familiar place. Tex had been to that house. Tex went back to that house. Here's the conversation. Indian Mesa. We got 4 campfires. We got 4 queens on a motorcycle gang, a motorcycle group that rides SS motorcycles out of Venice, Santa Monica. So we're riding motorcycles and we're all up there and we got these fires going. We got this big problem that came up. I had to go shoot somebody for Tex. Bobby's in prison. My brother's in jail. Now, understand my mind. All my life I've been in jail because I didn't have no one to get me out of jail. I didn't have no brother outside. So I spent years and years and years and years just because nobody would come sign their name and get me out of jail. And the jail couldn't let me out because I didn't have no place to go. So I spent 22 years in prison because I didn't have nobody outside. I can't let somebody that's with me stay in jail. It just ain't, it's not in my makeup, man. I got to get my brother out of jail.
So you needed money to do that.
Well, here's the division between your mind and my mind. Here's where the chamber opens up. When you get in trouble, you go to your mother. You call up mother. I ain't got no mother to call. When you go to the bank, draw some money, pay a lawyer. I ain't got no money. I can't go to no lawyer. I go to a lawyer, I ain't got enough money. I got a little money, and anytime anybody knows anything about lawyers, when you got a little money, they're just taking that. They'll take the little money and let you sue them in court. You dig? In other words, like, I don't have enough money to go to a lawyer to get Bobby out. So everybody's standing around, and I said, pay me what you owe me now. And they said, well, how do we do that? I said, get my brother out of jail. He said, how do we do it? I said, I don't know how you do it. I don't care how you do it. Do it now. Do it. And they said, how do we do it? I said, don't ask me how to do it. I don't want to be no part of no conspiracy. But however you do it and get it done now. And they said, well, we don't know what to do. We'll get a lawyer. And then, here, Leslie and Patty, they said, if we get a lawyer, all they're going to do is lie and take our money anyway. Now, system, blame it on your lawyers. If your lawyers ain't lying and taking the money of the poor people, then the poor people got a court to stand on, and they got rights as individuals for a revolution they fought in 1776 that guarantees rights to a common, ordinary farmer, poor man on the street like me, a rebel. I got my rights in the 76 courtroom. If you don't give me my rights in the courtroom, then I become King George. And I got all the rights then. And when I stand on the mountain and I say, do it, it gets done. If it don't get done, then I'll move on it. And that's the last thing in the world you want me to do, because I got that Confederate sword in the kitchen. Don't invoke me. Do it. Get it done. How do we do it? I don't know. I don't want to be involved in it.
What
I keep a close watch on this heart of mine. In Japan, they call it ninja. I don't get involved in violence. I'm not a violent human being.
Did you tell the women to do their witchy things?
I said, if you're gonna do something, leave something witchy. Just like I would tell you, if you're gonna do something, do it well. And leave something witchy. Leave a sign to let the world know that you were there. Have a good day.
Did you tell them which words?
No,
Pig,
no,
helter skelter,
Nope.
arise.
no. It's not my vocabulary. It's not my generation. I keep telling you that. My generation.
Leslie said, in the car on the way to the La Bianca house, you said, this time, make sure they're not scared like last night.
Oh, no. It may have been something like this. Yeah, I remember something like that, but I don't remember exactly the right words. I don't remember exactly the right words, but that's a simple philosophy for China. That's a Chinese philosophy. If you're gonna go to war and you're fighting your enemy and you're killing when he's afraid, it's a bad omen. It's bad. It's bad. So you try to absorb the fear. I think the Hindus use that word karma, to balance of karma.
And that's why you reassured Mr. LaBianca?
No, I mentioned that in a conversation about something. What it was about, I don't know. But I remember the conversation. Look, listen, my words. I live and die by my words. I've lived and died by my words all my life. For 45 years in prison. I keep my word. My word is my bond. I walk on my word. I live on my word.
Do you want the world to let you alone and turn away?
Listen. I broke no law. Try to understand that. I broke no law. I didn't step out of line with God, and I didn't step out of line with the man. I did not break the law. Now, I told those people the same thing that the United States president would tell them. The only way that you can dispensate life and death is you have to be willing to give yourself to that cause. You can't fight a revolution. You can't do anything unless you're willing to submit yourself to that cause. In other words, that's what you learn in the military.
Did you tell them to mutilate so that it would be memorable, so that people would know something was going on? Did you tell them to do it in a memorable way?
Hey, I told you what I told you. If you're gonna move, you're gonna do something, do it with your soul and your heart. Do it right, man. Don't half step on it.
Did they do it right?
I don't know. That's up to them. They live with that. They're responsible for their actions. I'm responsible for my actions.
You think the world's going to forget about you?
Which world? Every person in here is a world.
This united world of America. You think it's going to forget about you now and
Forget,
move on?
forgot. It's better. Bible doesn't win it. Boom. We're trying to unify Germany now. Look here. See, here's another thing you guys don't understand. You got an underworld and an overworld. You guys live in the overworld. I live in the underworld. It's like you think the Second World War is over. Second World War is not over. You understand what I'm telling you?
It is for me.
The Second World War is not over.
Is Charlie Manson crazy?
Well, whatever that means. Sure, he's crazy as mad as a hatter. What difference does it make?
Crazy.
A long time ago, being crazy meant something. Nowadays, everybody's crazy. So, synonymous. It's irony, man. The pair of ducks. Are you crazy? Dressed in black? You think I don't know everything that goes with that black you're dressed in? Yeah. Where's your black gloves? You got your rings. You think I don't understand your blue rings and your yellow biscuit? Stick or anything in there. Yeah, and then behind that, then, So.
What do you think about all day long?
I try not to think. I try to clear my mind.
Are you a changed man? They say they're changed.
I was a changed man when I got out last time. I learned my lesson well.
What's the lesson you've learned from all this?
I don't exist in your world. I'm only what is. What it is. It is what it is.
That don't even make sense.
Do you think they were uniquely children of those times, or you think kids would do the same
I think
thing?
those kids
again?
were beautiful.
And do you think kids today would do the same thing
Oh,
for you?
I think that, now, see, and if I say that, you're gonna put me in another conspiracy. And now everything that derives from this is gonna be all my fault. I'm coming back because, you know, and I know it's you know, like, where does the buck stop? You know, like,
Do you want to come back
come back where?
with more followers?
Oh,
more...
come on, more followers.
More...
Get it, just a bun of boom, boom, baby, bucks all around.
You said you said you were the heart of the place.
I had no followers.
You said you were the energy of the place.
I was the energy of the place only because I was there. I didn't even realize I was the energy of the place. You know, I didn't know everybody out there was dead. I really didn't. You know, I really honestly didn't know that everybody was running on what someone else said. You know, they said the kids come up and they said, what can we do? I said, do whatever you want to do. They said, you can't tell the children to do whatever they want to do.
How did you learn what they've done?
But over the period of years, I figured it all out. I went through my mind to figure out how things happen, you know.
But how did you learn what had happened those 2 nights? The next day and then the day?
Oh, no, it took years, man. I've been going through a lot of changes in here. I was on cell 13 in death row, walking back and forth. I was like, how did I end up here? I was going to San Diego. What did I do here? You know, and I was like, well, this is not, I didn't pick this trip. I didn't ask for this hand. That's what I said. We'll hold you on the table and we give this hand to you. You got a hippie cult leader? I'm not a hippie cult leader. I never was a hippie. I don't know what a hippie was,
When I come back one more time, I want to ask this one more time. You were not a shocked man when they came back.
All right, I'll put it to you this way. Would you do me a favor when you leave? Talk to this lieutenant and ask him if he's shocked by what goes on in here every day. I see blood in here every day. Every day someone's getting shot, someone's getting cut, someone's getting beat. I've lived in that all my life. That don't wrinkle up my forehead. You can pile out 100 dead bodies up in front of my cell and it don't set me to do nothing. You know, my mind is not set like that. I don't, let me say this. I feel bad if anybody feels bad. I don't like to see any negative happen to anyone. I don't like to see children die. I don't like to see automobile accidents. I don't like.
It's due to classifications for driving, maybe assault on himself, or fear of assault on himself, his own personal behavior, his disciplinary record while incarcerated in the department. There's a number of things that feed into it. It goes back to classification.
Are there fears that other inmates might have? I'm not aware of that. And that doesn't mean it isn't.
He wants to take off his jacket. You want him to leave his blue shirt on?
His blue shirt, yes. Blue shirt has to stay on. clothes that for me. He said I couldn't come out in this shirt. Where's the man that I was dealing with in this interview? Is it you?
Do I look like a man to you?
Well, where's the gentleman that?
Living with opioid addiction can be a struggle, trapped in a cycle of opioid use, withdrawal, and cravings. For adults with moderate to severe opioid addiction, whose withdrawal symptoms are controlled by oral buprenorphine for at least 7 days, Sublocade may help them keep moving towards recovery. In a study, people treated with once-monthly Sublocade plus counseling were 14 times more likely to have treatment success versus placebo. Sublocade continuously releases the medicine buprenorphine all month, with no real daily ups and downs. Buprenorphine is known to reduce cravings and block the rewarding effects of opioids.
Sublocade can cause serious life-threatening reactions and death if injected in a vein or if taken with certain other medicines or illicit drugs. Do not take Sublocade with other opioid medicines, benzodiazepines, alcohol, or other depressants without your doctor's approval. Ask your doctor about naloxone for emergency treatment of opioid overdose. Get emergency help if naloxone is given or if you feel faint, dizzy, confused, sleepy, uncoordinated, have blurred vision, slurred speech, or are breathing slower than normal. These can be signs of an overdose or other serious problems. In an emergency, have family and friends tell medical staff you're physically dependent on opioids and are being treated with Sublocade. This isn't a full list of risks and side effects. Talk to your doctor and read the patient labeling for more information.
Don't give up. Ask a doctor if Sublocade can help you keep moving towards recovery.
That's just kind of what each of us want to do, and it kind of makes things that people hopefully enjoy, but also can benefit their life.
Michael Jackson's youngest child, Blanket B.G. Jackson, is all grown up and giving a rare interview about how he and his siblings, 23-year-old Paris and 24-year-old Prince, continue to honor their father's legacy 12 years after his death.
My brother has a really unique talent.
On Monday, the 19-year-old spoke to Good Morning Britain, walking around a room filled with his dad's belongings.
There's a lot of really cool stuff here. I think there's a lot of history in his house and the studio here. That's what he was all about, and that's just kind of what each of us want to do. It kind of makes things that people hopefully enjoy, but also can benefit their life.
BG also revealed his passion advocating for climate change.
I do think it's important that we all know about it, and I think we have some work to do, but our generation knows how important it is.
The teen's interview comes just days after his big brother spoke to the same British morning show and opened up about his relationship with his siblings.
When we were growing up, my father would say, we could have nothing, but you look around in this room, your brother, your sister, and me, that's all you'll ever have. And that always stuck with my siblings and I, and we have such a close relationship. And because I'm the oldest, my father would always tell me I have to make sure that the group is taken care of, and then I have to kind of be the leader and lead by example. But after his passing and kind of us being thrown into the quote unquote real world, my siblings, honestly, they picked up the slack that I unfortunately left behind.
Now that they're all grown up, Prince said he doesn't really feel like there's a hierarchy anymore.
My sister has her strengths and my brother has his strengths, and where I'm not as strong in certain areas, they complement me in that way. any moment that I get to spend with my siblings now, especially as we're getting older, you know, and our own lives are starting to kind of blossom and grow, every moment that I get with them, any little family dinner, any family outing is really a special moment.
When E.T. spoke to Prince back in 2019 at his annual Halloween party to benefit his charity, Heal Los Angeles Foundation, shortly after he graduated from Loyola Marymount University, he opened up about his next chapter.
I feel like the world is my oyster now. I have so many different opportunities. I feel that my time is best devoted to the nonprofit right now because that's where my passion lies and that's where I feel I will get the most out of my life. I still have a creative bug and I'm figuring out how I'm fitting into the entertainment industry. I really have a few projects that I'm really working on, but I want to make sure they're solidified before I talk about them. But definitely excited to see what the future holds for me. It's somewhere in the entertainment with the philanthropic side of it for sure, though, I think.
As for Paris, E.T. spoke to the singer back in September, and she said she's the happiest she's ever been.
I'm good. I'm the happiest I've ever been, which is really nice to say. And I just feel good. I feel healthy. It's good to be present, especially for things that mean like so much to me.
What is it? What is making you so happy?
Probably the music, spending time with good people, and just my spiritual life is pretty great.
That's it.
You founded your kayak company because you love the ocean, not spreadsheets. You need to hire.
I need Indeed.
Indeed, you do. Indeed Instant Match instantly delivers quality candidates matching your job description.
Hello, and welcome to the Doc Exchange, a Real Stories podcast, in partnership with the Gerson Trust. Every week, I'll ask a new filmmaker or filmmaking team about 3 documentaries connected by a single theme that have made a meaningful impression on their work and life.
Medic 33, what is your emergency? Yes, sir. I need an ambulance as soon as possible, sir. Sir, we have a gentleman here that needs help and he's not breathing.
You're talking about Michael Jackson here. It was absolutely huge. There was a lot of pressure to get it right.
This isn't a man who should have died.
He's not breathing yet. He's not breathing, and we're trying to pump him, but he's not. He's okay. Okay, how old is he? He's 50 years old, sir. 50. Okay. He's unconscious. He's not breathing. Yes, he's not breathing.
When we were dispatched to a 50-year-old male, cardiac arrest, we think this is a viable patient. This is someone, if we get to in a timely manner, we can save. And then when I enter this room, opulent room, with medical equipment in it, I realize there's something unusual here. What 50-year-old male would be laying in bed at noon with medical equipment? We're not looking at the patient at that moment. Until my partner did. He looked up and whispered the name, Michael Jackson. When I realized who it was, I was surprised. We had no idea he was there. None of us had any idea who was living in our neighborhood.
Did anybody witness what happened? No, just the doctor showed.
There was a man with our patient who identified himself as the doctor.
You shouldn't have to overpay for car insurance based on things like your credit score, age, or zip code. With Karma Drive, you can save by proving you're a good driver. The safer you drive, the more you can save. All you need is a free Credit Karma app, drive as you normally do, and they'll automatically track your driving. At the end of your test drive, period, they'll let you know if you're eligible for a discount from a trusted insurance provider. Download the Credit Karma app to get started. It's free and easy to use.
And as such, I immediately asked him some information. What had happened? How long has this been going on? And he told me then that it had just happened. This was a patient to me that it seemed that he had not just passed away, that some time had gone by before we were notified. And in fact, later, when you're reflecting on this call, the days, the weeks, the months afterwards, one of the greatest regrets that all of us had is that we had not been called sooner. When we came outside, that's when we became aware of a very large presence. We were trying to back out on the street only to be hindered by many cameramen putting their lenses against the glass windows of the moving ambulance.
People seem to forget or don't realize about this investigation. It was a death investigation. It really wasn't a crime at the time. From the information that I had, it was probably an accident or natural, and we would find out that he had some pre-existing medical condition, and then we would be done.
Just look at what we knew in the first hours of this. Taken to the hospital, there wasn't a bloody knife, there wasn't a smoking gun. There was nothing on the surface that would lead anyone to believe anything nefarious had occurred.
When I arrived at the hospital, Dr. Berry was gone. So he was no longer there at the scene. We were in a bit of a panic then. The one person that was in a room with him at the time that everything happened was no longer at the hospital.
There were several attempts right away to get a hold of Dr. Murray that were negative, that they were going to voicemail.
Yeah, family members, Jackson family members coming in and people wanting some questions answered as well as us.
It is believed he suffered cardiac arrest in his home. A team of doctors, including emergency physicians and cardiologists, attempted to resuscitate him.
The emergency room physician, they believed it was a heart attack, partly because of what Mr. Murray had told them. Never told them anything about any other narcotics or anything. They just believed he had had a heart attack and stopped breathing.
So here we are at the Carroll Woodhouse. That day, by the time I got here, we had to block off this side of the street, the entrance side of the street, and it was full of media vans. We had never seen anything like it. I had never seen anything like it.
There was the room where then there was a locked room, which was Mr. Jackson's bedroom. There was a fireplace in the room, and it was roaring. But the room was very, very hot. There were like post-it note or pieces of paper tape all over the room, mirrors, doors with little slogans or phrases. I don't know if they were lyrics or thoughts or some of them seemed like poems. The bedroom was a mess. In the room where he was being treated, it did not seem like a room fit for any type of medical treatment. Not even like a home makeshift medical suite. It was just bare bones. I just remember going in there and there's an IV stand and a saline bag and just various medications strewn about. There was a computer on the bed. There was a lifelike doll on the bed, and it's kind of like advertisements of pictures with babies. Everybody knew about the allegations that had been leveled against Mr. Jackson over the years. One of the things when I saw the laptop on the bed, do I go into it? But you have to realize the type of case I was investigating. When you get, hold of an investigation, you have to kind of whittle out what is and what isn't.
It's like with any case, you don't allow whatever the victim was into prior to his death. Your investigation is focused on how did he die and who was responsible for it.
In the room where he was being treated, a bottle of propofol had fallen on the ground and rolled under this moving nightstand. I didn't know what it did. That ended up being a huge deal later. I had no medical background whatsoever. My neighbor was a doctor. So I went to my neighbor and I asked him about it. And my neighbor was the one who got it started of, whoa, what is this doing here? This is only used in surgery. This is used to put people under. We had put it out in the press that we were looking for Dr. Murray. We still didn't think that there was anything criminal going on. The only thing that we knew was this surgery drug was at the location that shouldn't be there. The next day, get a call. His attorney has been in contact. He gets us to an interview. So our plan was to let him talk. And that's what we did.
So, how long have you been a doctor for distress? I first started attending to it in 2006.
And it was continuous 2006 on?
No, well, no.
On and on.
Off and on, intermittent.
We didn't know what happened. We didn't want to assume anything. And we wanted to give the doctor an opportunity to dig his own hole, if that was the case.
It was just you and Michael. Usually that's how it is. Okay. And this night it was just you and Michael. Just myself and
And he proceeded to tell us that, Michael just couldn't sleep. He was just so amped up about this upcoming concert. He, by nature, had a hard time sleeping. He gave him some drugs, some Valium, lorazepam, diazepam, and a few others to try and calm Michael, to try and get him to rest, to fall asleep. And nothing works.
he was wide awake. I said, do you feel a bit drowsy? Do you think your eyes are telling you you want to sleep? But no.
Dr. Murray says, after trying all these various things, nothing was working. It's in the early morning hours of the next day, and so finally I just gave Michael his milk.
And that time you said,
You don't have any ice, do you?
I could have some milk.
Milk? Hot, cold milk? What are we talking about? He says, oh, well, it's a medication. Does the medication have a name? He says, well, it's propofol. And this was, again, a big revelation during this interview that propofol is mentioned. And what is this propofol?
It is a sedative that could also be used for anesthesia.
He freely admits that for months he's been using this to help Mr. Jackson sleep.
Okay, you've administered it more than 10 times.
Yes.
More than 20 times.
3 days a month, roughly, every day.
Oh, so it's about a daily.
Daily.
In my head, I was thinking, what the heck? To drug someone to sleep, even with their permission, the way that he did. I didn't think it was legal.
I monitored. I did him for long enough period that I felt was comfortable.
He gave him propofol and then goes to the bathroom, comes back. Mr. Jackson's not breathing.
So I started immediately to perform CPR and mouth-to-mouth resuscitation.
He goes into a panic. He tries CPR while Michael's on the bed. He summons Alberto Alvarez, the head of security, and ultimately Alberto Alvarez is the one that calls 911. When we reviewed the CCTV at the mansion, we saw that he carried in a bag with him. And also the family and the security staff told us he would always carry a bag with him. When he went to the hospital, he did not have the bag with him. The biggest aha moment was when I'd asked Dr. Murray where his bags were.
Where's your bag with those syringes would be at now?
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
I thought you left it there.
He was assuming that we had it. You haven't got my bags? Once he realized we didn't have that, he's like, deer in the headlights look, if you will. Legally, we can search the areas that are relevant. It wasn't in the room that was relevant.
If you walk into the dressing room and you turn right, at the high level top, the bags are right there with the items in it.
In those moments, people aren't their sharpest. They're not thinking the best. So it's our job to take those little mistakes that people make and build a case on them. First thing Monday morning, went to the house, went to where Dr. Murray had said that the medical bag was. Different room, in a closet, in a cubby above the closet, and we covered the bag.
We recovered a treasure trove of evidence from Murray's doctor's bag.
We found a bunch of more medicines that he had used, like propofol and lidocaine. One of the other things that we found all the waste, all the trash, the needles, the empty bottles, the stuff that when we went into the room should have been laying around. So we knew that sometime during this medical emergency, Dr. Murray had stopped either giving CPR or had waited to give CPR and cleaned up everything. So we're thinking, what could be the reasons for that?
Within 48 hours, it appeared that it was a suspicious death in the sense that there was something more than just an overdose. If
your goal is to preserve the life of the person that you're giving CPR to, why would you pause that to pick up trash unless you were trying to hide something? If he wouldn't have told us where it was, or if he would have taken it with it, we wouldn't have had it. We would have lost that element of the hiding, the trying to cover up.
We were now looking at Murray. He was behind the desk.
Not only do you have to do what you can for the victim, but you also have to take into account the organization.
You're donning a uniform that's been a part of history. And growing up with the stories that you'd heard from the Manson cases, Marilyn Monroe, all these notorious cases that you'd seen and heard about growing up were part of LAPD.
Historically, our department had not had very much success on high-profile cases. We had lost the OJ case. Everybody remembers the Bronco chase. Ourselves and the DA's office allowed him to turn himself in, and it turned into a pursuit and a hostage situation. Just ridiculous.
And even though you have this overwhelming amount of evidence to secure a conviction, you don't get it.
We, the jury, in the above entitled action, find the defendant or involved James Simpson not guilty of the crime of murder, a felony upon Nicole Brown Simpson, a human being, as charged in count 1 of the information.
For us, working the cases, we didn't want to make the same mistakes that have been made in the department's memory and in the public memory. There was a lot of pressure to get it right. Me personally, I thought that it was going to be horrible. The public scrutiny, the second guessing.
This is kind of like when the generation when Kennedy was assassinated. I now will remember that I was in Times Square, when I found out that Michael Jackson passed away.
There was a lot more pressure, if you will. There was a lot of eyes on us, obviously, to get the job done. It was daunting at times. When I showed up to go into the autopsy, they had a little cover over the window, and they're looking to make sure it's just me and no one else is around, and they open the door and they usher me in right away and close the door and lock it. Oh my gosh, we're in a controlled environment. This is your office. This is the coroner's office. What's the problem? Everything has been cleared out of there. I remember it being close to 5 hours long. It was extraordinarily long. The thing that was odd that I found myself periodically looking at was, his head, his scalp. Because whenever he's out in public, he's wearing a wig. Looking at his scalp and the top of his head and being, severely scarred, hardly any hair at all on the sides, to what he had looked like in public with the flowing hair. That was, a bit different. I'm not defending his use of prescription medicine by any means, but, when you experience something like that, it kind of opens up the door for painkillers and whatever else that may lead to. But other than that, it truly just, let's do this and get it done.
Blood is drawn, and then that blood is sent to a toxicology unit. So the initial autopsy didn't show much, nothing much that you wouldn't be shocked a 50-year-old body would have. It was relatively healthy. This isn't a man who should have died.
While an official cause of death has yet to be determined, the coroner's office says it has everything needed to make a ruling on why Jackson died.
We're still waiting for the toxicology reports and the completion of all the reports that are coming in.
The body was removed. It was weeks went by, and we kept asking, when are we going to hear from toxicology? When are we going to hear?
We had a death, but we didn't have a criminal death yet.
It's official. Michael Jackson's death was a homicide. The LA County Coroner's Office says the cause of death was an acute intoxication from the anesthetic propofol.
Once the toxicology report came back, it gave us a lot more power behind our investigation. Other than going on a hunch, now we're going on facts.
And then it became the idea of how bad. That was the big question. How bad is this?
Ultimately, the toxicology results, you have those over here and you have Dr. Murray's statement here, and it just wasn't jiving. There was just no way that what he said was factual to what they found out. Had enough propofol in him to drop a rhinoceros.
He could no longer breathe on his own, and Murray had not set up an environment to allow for artificial means of breathing, which is reckless, gross negligence.
This is a bottle that people pee into when they're bedridden. This was found at the bedside and it was full. He used the restroom without having to get out of bed. What it made us think was that he was completely incapacitated, that someone was caring for him to that extent. Seeing things like this, I realized that he wasn't being helped to fall asleep. He was being kept under. As a consequence, not having the strength or the ability to get up and go to the restroom, just take care of business and continue sleeping.
What we did is we took our case, and this included all of our interviews, all of our statements, and most significantly, the toxicology reports and the autopsy reports. We had 11 physicians in, I think, 5 or 6 different specialties review this material, and were asked to render an opinion.
As I was looking for doctors to evaluate the level of care, I came across Dr. Schaefer. He was instrumental in developing propofol.
I demonstrated that in statement after statement after statement in Conrad Murray's interview, what he said made no sense. It was not possible. He just asserted things that were not true.
You would need a continuous drip of the propofol and not a shot, not an injection, like Dr. Murray had said he had used. It wears off really quickly.
So what I'm simulating right here is the dose that Conrad Murray claims was available to Michael Jackson, and that's claimed resulted in Michael Jackson's death. A dose of just 25 milligrams, 2.5 cc's of drug, which is ridiculous. It only lasts for a few seconds, and this was the whole point of the mathematics that I presented, and the heart, of course, keeps pumping. So we know that there was a 100 cc vial hanging over Michael Jackson. And knowing it was empty, we can see exactly how over a period of about 30 to 40 minutes, it enters into a dose that would be associated with a lethal concentration of drug in a patient who wasn't being looked after, because they're really under pretty deep general anesthesia at that point in time. And this corresponds to having an empty 100 ml vial hanging over Michael Jackson's head. And I thought, oh my God, this is it. This is the smoking gun. This is actually the bottle of propofol that killed Michael Jackson.
What we discovered was one of the IV bags had been emptied one of the propofol bottles had been upside down inside his bag.
There's a bottle of propofol inside an IV bag? I mean, one of the single weirdest details.
There was a big tear, a pike or a needle that is large would have broken the top of the propofol bottle so that it could drip freely down.
Basically, Murray was using a saline bag to hang the bottle of propofol from the stand, but also, I think, to hide it, because he didn't want anybody to know he was using propofol. So to get an idea of just how crazy this is, the anesthetic drugs are all dangerous. There is really no access outside of the healthcare setting. We have pumps that are set up, they're precisely calibrated and precisely control the dose. He had an IV line coming down from here, and it's not going to roll from one side. It's just this little roller thing. It's a gravity-fed system. There's very little control on the rate of the drug, and that's what he was using. It's insane. Nobody trained in propofol administration would not precisely control the infusion rate. Nobody trained in the use of propofol would ever walk away from a patient who is receiving propofol as a continuous infusion. Physicians with no training in anesthesia have no business giving propofol.
So at that point, we knew this was not an honest mistake, but that this was on purpose bad medicine.
An MD degree is not a license to do whatever the hell you want to do and just think you can get away with it.
One of the challenges in the investigation was the uncooperative witnesses. One of those was Dr. Murray's girlfriend. When we finally served the search warrant at her apartment, the whole place had been cleaned out. There was nothing to show that Dr. Murray had been there, stayed there, frequented there at all. Fortunately, they had missed behind one of the bookcases. And behind one of the bookcases, we found a receipt for a pharmacy. That led us to the propofol. These items here are what we found at Nicole Albers' house. So it brings me back to remembering how difficult things were when dealing with her. This business card and this receipt were the only things in his name at her place. This led us to the pharmacy. When we arrived at the pharmacy had all the records ready. They had been following the news and they knew that the police would be there eventually. And as you go through, you can see all the amounts. One case of the 100 milliliter bottles, one case of the 20 milliliter bottles. In June, 4 cases of the 100 milliliter bottles. All of the amounts, it's over 5 gallons worth of propofol.
A massive amount of propofol.
Worried about your loved one falling? Get the Symphony Medical Alert System from CVS Health.
A massive amount of propofol was shipped to his girlfriend's house.
We found that there was other doctors that Michael had reached out to in hopes of being administered propofol, and he was turned down.
That relationship was a perfect storm. Michael first got introduced to propofol through a dental procedure, and he liked it. He felt like, wow, this is the best way to go to sleep.
That was his drug of choice, and he was looking for doctors that would administer that, as wrong as it was.
Usually you think of a doctor as someone very successful and ethical and distinguished. Why they would risk a patient's life for anything. What would make it worth
warrants out in Las Vegas, his residence, as well as his place of business in Las Vegas, and then his office out in Houston, Texas.
We get into finances, we get into business dealings, and his relationships.
We have seen a search party in the Armstrong Medical Clinic this morning with members from the DEA and the Houston Police Department, and we are from LAPD Robbery Homicide Division.
He had several children. We would learn several of them by several different wives.
We would go out to places of adult entertainment and spend outrageous amounts of money. We would put on a show and not be able to support it financially. He would leverage his closeness to a celebrity to manipulate young women into relationships with him.
We knew that he had purchased a home in October in Las Vegas for over $1 million, and his mortgage was $10,000 a month, and he had stopped paying it.
He had censures from different states where he practiced medicine. These different medical boards, they sent us the files of the complaints and the penalties that they would impose on Dr. Murray when he would violate their rules. We saw a pattern of sloppy behavior.
A private physician to Michael Jackson. Here he is, just an absolute mess, you know? Yeah, surprising.
This is what I recovered from his car, from the doctor's car. This was the contract as we first found it, the agreement between Dr. Murray, AEG, and Mr. Jackson. The producer shall remit payment to Dr. Murray in the amount of $150,000 per month. So this is where the money came into it.
Michael started working, preparing for this huge comeback tour, and that's when he had reached out, Michael, and told AEG that he wanted Conrad Murray with him. And initially, AEG's like, London's not a third world country to have fabulous doctors over there. What do you need your own physician for?
And Michael's response to his managers were, listen, the President of the United States has a physician. Travel with him. I want a physician to travel with me.
Dr. Murray agreed to go ahead and accompany him and provide Michael with what he wanted.
So he needed this gig with Mr. Jackson either to pay off or to keep up with his debts.
He had the right motive. He needed money.
Ultimately, the decision was made to charge Dr. Murray with involuntary manslaughter as opposed to second-degree murder.
The DA's office didn't want another high-profile failure. It was an election year for the district attorney. I think it was I don't want to say the lazy way out, but again, a manslaughter charge was, the path of least resistance.
The family wasn't happy with it at all. Mrs. Jackson is just beside herself that there wasn't going to be a second-degree murder filed.
We felt the evidence suggests that it was a second degree.
The level of his negligence was just so clear that we thought thought that it would apply. We do not charge people. We investigate the case and we present it. We were not happy with the choice, but we deal with what we can and we move forward.
What I felt a little pressure, I guess, is when it came time to arrest Dr. Murray.
We wanted to see Murray in handcuffs, and I think a lot of people wanted to see him in handcuffs.
His attorneys didn't want Dr. Murray to be seen in handcuffs in public. That's not good for his image. Neither is killing somebody, but
behind our backs, the DA's office made that agreement with Dr. Murray's attorneys.
the doctor turned himself in, voluntary surrender. You know, I'm of the opinion that regardless of who you are, or what walk of life you come from, if you've done wrong, then you need to answer for that.
I'm an innocent man. I therefore plead not guilty.
Again, he feels he's done nothing wrong. It wasn't his fault. He's arrogant individual.
Conrad Murray figuratively and literally abandoned Michael Jackson.
We looked at Murray's phone records. That was a big, huge piece. We could see Murray on his phone at certain times.
He left this vulnerable man filled with Valium and midazolam and lorazepam and propofol with no medical monitoring equipment, no necessary resuscitative equipment. He left him there, abandoned him to fend for himself.
So as far as stepping away for a minute, going to the bathroom and coming back, and oh my gosh, Michael's dead. No.
He was sending emails, reviewing the contract, and he was also on the telephone with various people. While he was on the phone, he realized that Mr. Jackson was not breathing.
I heard mumbling of voices. It sounded like the phone was maybe in his pocket or something. It was shh, and I heard coughing.
We looked at the timelines of when the 911 call was, I think, around 20 to 25 minutes after that call with Sade and
Mr. Murray started cleaning up the mess that he had left, covering up the medical treatment that he was giving, put that away, called for help from security, directed them to call 911 while he gave ineffective one-handed CPR, and then traveled to the hospital with Mr. Jackson.
Oh, come on.
Dr. Murray fled the hospital before we arrived, waited a couple of days to get his story straight, and ultimately was prosecuted for his conduct.
We, the jury in the above entitled action, find the defendant, Conrad Robert Murray, guilty of the crime of involuntary manslaughter.
That's how that turned out. Should have been a second degree murder. Yeah, I think it could have been.
Unfortunately, that is not a choice that we were able to make.
The biggest thing is that he does not get his medical license back in any state, and I personally don't see that happening. And I'm just trying to keep it light and polite here, but yeah, he's in his own world. He's in his own world, Dr. Murray.
I think with this case, we actually have the answers. We won't be in that book of unsolved murders, all the big ones where we failed. At least my name won't be put in the same place as those.
It's something I'll never forget, obviously, the rest of my life. One hell of an experience. Yeah, no regrets.
In big cases like this, sometimes, friendships can really dissolve. But not in this case. It was, we all lived happily ever after.
As soon as this one was over, it comes to, this is what we expect of you. You get your next murder and you move forward. About 4 years after the trial, I was driving home from work. I look over to my left and I see this green, older, nice Mercedes. I feel someone staring at me. I look over in the same car and I see Dr. Murray. It took me a few seconds to register that it was him. And by that time, our cars were separated. But I never saw any double takes or any instant moment of recognition. At that time, I wondered whether or not he would start practicing medicine. Do you give someone like that a second chance? Someone who's done their time for the crime that they've committed. When do you let it go?
Well, he's under 60, they need customized car insurance from Liberty Mutual, so they only pay for what they need.
And they're not giving you a helicopter.
Only pay for what you need.
Liberty, 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 liberty.
I don't care about coincidences, done. I don't care about her.
I think this is the most dangerous phase in my life. He's planning an accident in my car. Brake failure and serious head injury. In order to make the car.
Michael Jackson and plastic surgery. The two are synonymous with each other as a result of countless column inches dedicated to the artist's changing appearance over the decades. From lip reductions and cheek implants to eye reshaping and botched nose jobs. There isn't much that Michael Jackson's face hasn't allegedly undergone, as stated in the tabloids. Overtly sensationalized by media outlets or downplayed by the artist himself. What is the truth behind the years of speculation, and what plastic surgery did Michael Jackson actually have? Here's the as the first ever video on this channel was also on this subject. And because that video was somewhat popular, we thought it deserved a 2021 update. So, with the help of upscale video footage and after 2 years studying Michael Jackson's evolving appearance, we are going to chronicle the plastic surgery procedures Michael Jackson has known to have undergone, alongside images of before and after, in order to make an accurate assessment of the work he had done during his lifetime. Michael Jackson's first foray into plastic surgery came in 1979, when at the age of 21, Jackson reportedly broke his nose while in dance rehearsal. Needing surgery for the break, and with the release of his first solo record as an adult, Off the Wall, coming up, Michael decided to, at the same time, undergo his first rhinoplasty. Michael Jackson entrusted Beverly Hills plastic surgeon Stephen Hoffman, who would work on the likes of Elizabeth Taylor, Joan Rivers, Ivana Trump, and was Jackson's preferred choice for many years to come. Before, Michael Jackson's nose was characterized by its broad bridge and widened nostrils, as well as its lack of definition and projection at the tip. After surgery, Hoffman gave Michael a slimmer and more defined result, while still maintaining the integrity of his original nose. However, according to Jackson, the surgery was not a complete success, as he wasn't satisfied with its overall appearance and complained of breathing difficulties that would affect his singing. Therefore, in 1981, during the hiatus between Off the Wall and his mega-hit Thriller, Michael decided to go back to Stephen Hoffman to perform a second rhinoplasty. Hoffman later explained, quote, "Noses sometimes can't be reduced all at once, and it can take a two-stage procedure. Not just reshaped. Michael's nostrils were surgically..."
I'm a transgender woman, and my dream was always to be loved and be accepted.
Ask your healthcare provider if Biktarvy is right for you, and visit Biktarvy.com to view the important facts, including important warnings.
A girl got pregnant. She was scared. Her parents thought her boyfriend was the father, but the baby wasn't his. He loved her, so he offered to raise the child with her. One evening, her water broke. There wasn't time to get help. He delivered the child and laid him in a manger.
Surgically reduced by cutting and removing skin, creating a scar around his nostril crease, resulting in the dramatically reduced size of his nostrils. And as a result of the second procedure, Jackson's nose was made even narrower, and the tip less bulbous. Still unsatisfied, and with Thriller skyrocketing up the charts, Michael Jackson decided to undergo a third rhinoplasty during the summer of 1983, revealing the result in his Say 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 music video with Paul McCartney. This time, Michael's nostrils and nose tip were further reduced. His tip was now as narrow as the bridge, and his profile was given a slight upturned appearance. Unfortunately, not all Michael Jackson's surgeries would be voluntary, as on January 27, 1984, while Michael and the other members of the Jacksons were filming a Pepsi commercial in Los Angeles' Shrine Auditorium, pyrotechnics set Jackson's hair on fire, causing second-degree burns to his scalp and extensive hair loss to his head. In the run-up to 1984's Victory Tour, Michael Jackson endured a series of painful surgeries, whereby they cut away scarred areas and stitched his unaffected scalp together in hopes of disguising Jackson's injury and covering the now palm-sized bald spot on top of his head. As indicated in this rare home footage, presumably taken while Michael Jackson was recovering from surgery as well as practicing his dance moves for his upcoming tour, Michael can also be seen wearing a surgical splint on his nose as well as dressings on his scalp. This would suggest that during his scalp procedures,
Jackson decided to have his nose revised for the 4th time. This theory is further substantiated when Michael appeared at his mother's birthday celebrations with his nose looking different, as though still slightly swollen a month after surgery. During the victory tour, it was clear from Michael Jackson's side profile that his nose tip was further refined, and its upturned position had become unnaturally whimsical in its appearance. However, by 1986, it became apparent that Michael Jackson was visibly having issues with his recently surgically altered nose, as on May 6, 1986, Jackson appeared at a Pepsi press conference with sunglasses on, disguising a nose that appeared asymmetric and at a stage of collapse. With filming for commercials and new music videos coming up, the next month Michael was photographed wearing a surgical mask for the first time. In that July, while attending the funeral of Vincent Minnelli, photographers noticed his nose altered, as well as the addition of a Kirk Douglas-style dimple to his chin. His jawline's new look was achieved by the use of an implant, as his autopsy report noted that he had